We got to the airport successfully. Everything was so easy. My dad doesn't like taking photos. He doesn't like smiling for photos. For the first time, he asked me to take a photo of him. Let's play a little game. Let's see whose line gets there faster. He got there first, but he just stood there. They asked my father to accompany them. So I followed the securities and I said, "Where are you taking my dad?" "Oh, you're his daughter? Okay, then you come with us too. I think you should go. This might be your last chance, my daughter." He switched from Uyghur to Chinese so everyone in the room could understand him. 孩子，你看看你，你看看你身边，你看看你周围，看看这个国家是怎么对待你的。你真的还想留在这儿吗？ When I got to Chicago, I barely spoke any English, and I looked exhausted and confused. So I got detained again. It was then that I realized that this was a life that my father planned for me, so I could escape. It was a name card that my father sneaked into my pocket. The professor who invited my father to Indiana University, who spoke Chinese and who had connections at the US government, who was able to let me be granted into the country. And here I am, after 11 years, all alone on the other side of the world. I am Jewher Ilham. My father, Ilham Tohti, an Uyghur scholar, was sentenced to life in prison for his beliefs, for championing the rights of the Uyghur people. Today, I do not know if my father has been transferred to another prison, or a factory, or to a camp. My story is one of millions. I'm here to shed light on the oppression faced by the Uyghurs under the Chinese government and explain how things, the clothes on your back, the solar panels on your roof, and even the food on your plate may be supporting a system that is built upon the internment of Uyghurs like me. But first, some context.
It is a blueprint for world revolution. Red China's battle plan.
In the wake of revolution, the Chinese government got what they wanted. Absolute control over the government's executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Fast forward to 2012, and enter Xi Jinping, a leader who has again reshaped the very fabric of Chinese governance. But when he was elected, Xi did have a problem. China's economic growth was at its worst point in 13 years, and it was continuing to slow. If he failed to turn the economy around, the Chinese people may lose faith in his leadership. Keep that in mind, as we'll return to it in a bit. This is the Uyghur region in northwest China, where my family comes from. We're a Turkic ethnic group with our own language, which is a Turkic language, our own delicious traditional food, our own unique traditional clothing, and most of us are practicing Muslims. The very existence of the Uyghur people contradicts Xi's version for one, culturally homogeneous China.
The historical background, the underpinnings of a lot of what we see in the Uyghur region today is very much mirroring what the colonial powers have done the past few centuries. It has all these telltale signs. You have, children separated from parents, put into boarding schools. They've been prohibited from speaking in their mother tongue. Cultural and religious policies that are so restrictive that basically disallows people from expressing themselves. And then economically speaking, resource extraction. And it's something that the Chinese government doesn't like to acknowledge, but that is exactly what is happening in the Uyghur region right now, and it's what's been happening for the past, 40 or 50 years. A lot of what's underpinning these kinds of policies has been this fear and nervousness around difference. Uyghurs are suffering what the UN has called possible crimes against humanity. The US government and other governments have said that genocide's taking place. You have a forcible, violent assimilationist policy instituted from the Chinese government to forcibly, change the identity of these people, about 12 million of them. Government statistics make it very clear that imprisonment numbers and imprisonments in the Uyghur region are the highest proportion of anywhere in the world if you compare to any other country. It's an astronomical figure when compared to anywhere else on the planet. Things that you would not ordinarily think about in free societies. Could get you detained, could get you sentenced to life in prison.
In these detention camps, 30 to 40 Uyghurs share cells meant for 9 people. They're surveilled 24 hours a day. They undergo forced sterilization. They're forced outside in below freezing temperatures. They receive 1 meal daily, consisting of a bun and watery soup. They're chained to their beds and forced to relieve themselves in front of their cellmates. They're not allowed to contact their families, and their loved ones likely don't even know where they are. The Chinese government denies these allegations. In fact, they call them re-education centers, where they have to learn Chinese laws and history, and where they have to chant Chinese national songs, known as red songs, and praise Xi Jinping every morning. And my father is one of them. But why? The Uyghur region is and always has been a critical component of President Xi's economic growth strategy. With the decline of the Chinese youth population because of the one-child policies, and with the aging issue, the Chinese government really needed to find a second solution, a better solution to both maintain China's position to be a major labor providing country for the West, but also allowing its population to work on higher income jobs like tech, like business. But who will be placed in those low-income jobs that nobody wants to work in? The Uyghurs, who the Chinese government claim as surplus laborers. The Uyghur region provides over 20% of China's total energy reserves, produces polysilicon, which is a key material for solar panels. It produces over 10% of the world's PVC, 85% of China's cotton, which constitutes to over 22% of the global cotton output.
15% of the world's tomatoes, 10% of the world's aluminum. These are all coming from the Uyghur region. It is very much a resource-rich region in which a lot of the supply chain starts. Global supply chains are, of course, complex, but in many ways, the international community understands very well what's happening in the Uyghur region. I think the problem is you get some companies who are willfully blind. They care a lot about the way in which they can benefit financially. The language that the Chinese government speaks is often in the language of economics. So in some ways, the way in which we target the kind of abuses is to target the kind of economic system that China has imposed on the region, which is really living and breathing off forced labor. You need to target the labor system, you need to target the economic approach that the Chinese government has taken, which is built on exploitation.
You may think that the Uyghur region is far away, but I'm certain that in your closet, or at your home, or in your office, there are a number of products that have been touched by the hands of the Uyghurs working under conditions of forced labor. This is modern-day slavery.
This is a consequence of such interconnected supply chains. Companies are able to hide behind that complexity and claim that they just don't know where the products are coming from.
Our ask is simple. We want companies worldwide to cut ties with factories using Uyghur forced labor.
These kinds of things are so intimately connected with our own consumption. We can take steps and ensure that we're not sourcing from regions where crimes against humanity are taking place.
You can download HRF's award-winning Uyghur forced labor brand checker that notifies you when the brand you're shopping at is likely tinted with Uyghur forced labor. Consumers hold power. We must demand transparency from brands and policy change from our representatives. Please, write to the companies that you shop from the most and ask them, are they really choosing profits over human lives? Enough is enough. We must stop the Chinese government's genocide against the Uyghur people, my people.